You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This isn't a blood hole. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I am your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com, click on podcasts, and you'll find the Batman Podcast Network that has a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also like to dive into other nerdy subjects that we all love to frolic about, especially that Italian Peter Arvera. Frolic master that one in our free time. If you like what's going on with the show and you want to help support the show, keep the generators running in the Wayne Manor study, just go to patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Now, thank you for listening to episode 224, Birth of the Demon. Joining me, he's no stranger to this show, and actually he's the first person I think of when I hear Demon Birth. It's Tim Rooney. Tim Rooney, welcome back to the show.
It's so funny you say that because that's how most of my family thinks of me when they
good.
they think Demon Birth, like, Tim's here.
Tim.
And you're right. We do frolic in a nerdy subject here.
Absolutely.
We like to, and Peter likes to frolic in those geeky subjects just as much as Ozcob likes extra pickles on his burger.
You are damn right. Everybody frolics, and Pete frolics. We all frolic.
I just can't wait to get like a DM in like a couple of weeks where he's just like, God damn it, Rooney.
Yeah, F you, Rooney.
Exactly.
I don't frolic. Man, don't frolic. So stay tuned next episode, and we'll see if what Pete has to say about good old Tim Rooney here talking frolic. So I actually just rewatched the 3 Austin Powers movies like last week. I haven't watched them in a very long time, and for some reason, in the second one, Dr. Evil looks at Frau and he says, "How are things?" Hey, Tim, how are things?
Very good, Doctor. Things
good.
are well. While you were frozen, things are well. Speaking of frozen and being in the in the Northeast, we're dealing with like blizzards and stuff like that. I did see like a topographical map of the United States recently, and it had like the heat miser on the West Coast, and then frosty like on the East Coast and everything like that. Like, yeah, that kind of sums up America right now. We're just dealing with 2 extreme weather conditions on either side of the coast, but I am surviving. I like to think that I'm thriving, and I'm hoping that 2025 is even better than 2024. So fingers crossed. But I think it's starting off right about us talking about this book today.
Absolutely. Thriving, surviving,
Driving.
Thank you. Yes. Driving and hiving, because we got the hot. No, that doesn't work. I don't know, but I like where your head's at.
Hibernating. Oh no.
Hibernating. Yeah. It's tough, but I like where your head's at, the optimism, and let's go 2025. Let's dive in, shall we? Enough with my foreplay. Let's just dive right in here. We're talking births, we're talking demons, foreplay. This is out of control. Off to a great start. Let's talk Batman, Birth of the Demon. Now this story, Tim Rooney, obviously it was written by the great Denny O'Neil. It was drawn by / painted by the GOAT, Norm Breyfogle. It's funny in looking up this, I saw everywhere of copyright 1992, but everything I was looking at was saying that this had a cover date of January of 1993. So there you go, 92, 93, somewhere between there. This story was released. It was released in a hardcover. It was released in a trade paperback. It's been collected in a Batman Birth of the Demon collection that also collected Son of the Demon and Bride of the Demon. It was also collected recently in the past couple of years that called the Demon Trilogy, which is the exact same thing with a nice little write-up from Mike Barr. Those collections are available on the greatest app of all time, Hoopla, and they're also available on DC Universe Infinite Ultra. So, all of that out of the way, Tim Rooney, for this episode, which version did you read?
Well, this was given to me by an old coworker when I worked at Walmart. He was a custodian for like the overnight shift, and we started talking about Batman because I noticed he had a Batman shirt on. Like most conversations I start with strangers, like, "Hey, you like
Of course.
Batman? Let
Yep.
me talk to you." And so I have this from 1990. I think I left the job before giving this back to him, so I am sorry that I still have it. And I don't have his contact information to give back to him. But yeah, no, I had the trade
Sure
paperback
you
version.
don't, Tim. Sure
I
you don't.
I couldn't even remember his name, and I'm just like
Oh,
I've been.
ouch.
I
We'll cut
know, but
that part
that's
out.
no, 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 no. Like it's a thing. Like I fully I'm great with faces,
Yeah.
terrible with names. I've seen people I have not seen in like 20 plus years, and like I know exactly. I remember him from my elementary school. I couldn't remember his name, but I could pick him out of a lineup.
What if it was
So,
Peter Vera? And he's like, Rooney,
uh,
that was my copy, you son of a bitch.
if it was Peter Arbera, he like Peter leaves such an impression. I would remember that name.
You would? Oh,
That
look at that. That's a compliment.
of course.
Yeah.
But that was
Unforgettable.
funny. Yes, unforgettable. That is the perfect word to describe him. Um, yeah, because we were talking about it and speaking about I think Ra's al Ghul specifically,
Hmm.
and like how much we enjoyed Liam Neeson's portrayal in Batman Begins, and then obviously talking about the great David Warner's vocal performance as the character in the Batman the Animated Series, who was ringing in my head the entire time when I was rereading this book for this episode.
Because of his dance moves from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, right?
Of course, and
Okay.
it was
That's all.
funny. Like I'm pretty sure my girlfriend has not seen any of the Ninja Turtle movies, and
Gasp.
like I know, she was more of a Power Ranger person than a Ninja Turtle person, so I totally get
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
I was dipping in both, but okay. Carry on.
yeah. So, but like I do want to show her at least the first two and be like, all right, do you want to see a tonal whiplash in 11 months time, and then watch one and two back to back and see how different those two are.
I don't even. I mean, oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say tonal whiplash and go into three, but no, that would be quality whiplash.
That'd be a
Um,
quality downgrade and everything like that. I mean, the turtles
eh,
look diseased in Ninja Turtles 3. Elias Koteas looks like he's held hostage. It's like, hey, we'll
yeah.
get you back as Casey Jones. Oh, by
Oh
the
my
way, you're
goodness.
staying in this the subway set the entire time, but we'll give you
Oh
another
my
part
gosh.
as not Casey Jones.
That I still I'll do rewatches because the very first one is obviously the best, but I wholeheartedly love Secret of the Ooze. And then I always am just like, I might as well watch three, knowing full well I don't like it. Like it's not good. And it's not one of those, it's so like it's so bad it's good. It's like, no, it's every single time it's such a struggle to watch. I'm still for some reason like, well, I've got to finish it. Why? Nobody's keeping track. But anyways, I digress.
I mean, like, it's bad that in a Ninja Turtles movie, the most entertaining scenes are the transplanted uh honor guard that came back in time that Casey is
Yes.
babysitting, and
Yes.
like them dancing to Tarzan Boy in a bar slash nightclub. Like this should not be the most entertaining part of the movie, and yet here we are.
Yeah. Ugh, ugh. All right. So your version that you showed me, okay, the trade I have and read the hardcover first
Ooh, that's very
edition.
nice.
It is a very nice hardcover and a nice dust jacket, great wraparound cover by Breyfogle. Um, yeah, this is a good one, and I really like the art on yours. So in the two collections of all three of this trilogy, it did show the cover of the one that you have, and I think that's a pretty awesome cover too.
Oh yeah, because it's so and it's not flat. There is a texture to the cover
Ooh,
and everything like
nice.
that during the fight between in the Lazarus Pit between
Hmm.
Raish and Batman.
Gotcha. Okay. I should have mentioned that both of these editions actually affordable on eBay. Both editions are. They aren't ones that are impossible to get. And I would highly recommend that you seek out like the singular. I think the better deal obviously is to get the collected editions that have the whole trilogy itself. I think these are worth tracking down solo and getting your own copies, and you can do that without breaking the wallet. on eBay. So I'm good at helping people spend money, and consider that my service for today.
I mean, like you should be getting residual checks from DC Warner Brothers,
I know.
at
I
least
know.
from Time Warner parent company, like because you pushing and from Hoopla, you should have
Yeah.
at least some stock options with Hoopla. But I bet you when the Brave and the Bold movie finally does go into production and Damian Wayne becomes a very vocal part of the discussion leading up to that movie, which I'm sure the internet will take with grace and understanding,
Of
and
course.
not like
Yeah.
everything else, especially with
Hmm.
comic book movies. I imagine this story might be a little bit harder to find because people would want to know everything about Birth of the Demon, and that trilogy might go real fast.
Yeah. So stock up now. And it
Mm-hmm.
is a goal of mine to finally somehow invade the ear of somebody at Hoopla and get a page under the comic section called the Batman Book Club. So
And just
I'm
be it'd be
just
like so you
saying
would go to that and
Hoopla.
it would be all the things that you've read on there. So
Yeah.
like all the episodes like corresponding with it.
Yeah. And then I mean we'll talk from there. I'm not even asking for money. I just
That's
want
not
fame. And
impossible. I think
obviously
that's
fame is with Hoopla. Hoopla gets you famous. That's all I want. I want fame. Give it to me. I'll sell my soul to the demon. I'm kidding. All right.
I don't think that's an unreasonable request. It's not like, oh, and I want your firstborn. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, what?
Oh my gosh. That escalated quickly. Tim, when you were handed this, it seems as if it was roughly 20 years ago, but I'll let you answer. When did you first read this then?
It wasn't quite 20 years ago, thank God, but
Okay.
it was um this must be 2009, 2010. So 15, 16 years ago.
Okay. That was a ways. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, but it's like, oh no, that was like 8 or 9 years ago I got that.
No.
And no, it's like almost 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deep breaths.
Um,
Deep breaths.
yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It was funny. Like a person who's like 8 years younger than me was complaining about somebody who's younger than them, like using slang he didn't understand. And I'm like, get used to it. You're never gonna have that feeling of like, oh, I don't know what he's saying, and I'm lost and scared. Like it never gets any better. Get used to
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So it was like 2009, 2010. I read this for the first time, and there's certain images that like it was really astounding when I was rereading it for the podcast that like immediately came back to me, and like that first visceral reaction like came flooding back to me when I see like specifically the moment where Raish is forced to climb into the cage with the corpse of his wife and being buried.
Hmm.
Like that stuck with me, and then like the numerous poses of Raish kind of like or characters kind of like standing upright, but their shoulders are slumped and they're like all their abs are like flexed and everything, and they have this like extended arms out of them as they just came out of the Lazarus pit. Because as we have proclaimed many times in this podcast, Breyfogle's framing and his sense of drama in a panel is second to none, and it's
Hmm.
fully on display in this one.
Hmm. Oh, I have a few things to say about Norm Breyfogle in our discussion, which I know wild to even think about. I first read this in 2008, so we were around the same time period because I got it as a Christmas present.
Really?
And yeah, I got this and I got Son of the Demon, that hardcover also. And yeah, I knocked them both out like probably like the next day or something like in a sitting. I read them both and I was just wowed by this one because of flat out the art.
Yeah.
In which we'll get to that, and obviously we'll get to my thoughts on the story as well. My last question before we dive in, though, is why Birth of the Demon?
Well, because this is like my sixth or seventh time that I've been lucky enough to be on here and
When
discuss
I lose
Batman with you.
count, that's a good sign, right? I've lost
Yes, that's
count.
the. I mean, like, yes, number of podcast episodes. That's a good thing. If you are a chaperone and children lost, not a
Oh,
good thing.
oh, whoops.
It's
I
like,
got
oh
some
no,
emails to send.
like I had 33 kids. We came back with 17. Oh,
Huh.
I knew I was
Weird.
missing something.
Nobody liked Mike
Uh,
anyway. It's fine.
no. He started fires and he pulled Cindy's hair, so
Oh,
no one's
jeez.
missing him.
F Mike.
Exactly. Um, And so I'm just like, all right, let me think outside the box here. I could have done another issue from the Batman Adventures comics because we
Hmm.
enjoyed that. I could have pulled something from Gotham Central, and I'm just like trying to think outside the box or like go really wild, like something current, like World's Finest, because I'm loving everything that World's Finest has been doing lately. Or hell, I could have been even like more current, like no, let's do Absolute Batman issue number 1 or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but no, something about this and like, oh no, this is unique. It has two of the best creators that ever graced Batman's oeuvre, and it's Breyfogle's art that I just like, oh,
Yeah,
we just want to gush about for an hour.
I'll allow it. I do believe when in another chat that you and I are in, and you brought it up actually because on some episode I'd mentioned that I was surprised that nobody picked Birth of the Demon, and you were like, hearing Ryan mention that nobody's picked Birth of the Demon, and then he did the old, stroking of the chin emoji, and I was like, hey, Tim, next time that you're on, do your call, and then here we are. Let me just
Yeah.
say, I'm glad that you chose this one. I'll get into why. Let me read a little bit of the synopsis here. More than 20 years later, so in 1971, writer Denny O'Neil introduced a new villain to the Batman mythos, Ra's al Ghul the Demon. Ra's, Raish. Tim and I will debate here in a second. Now, more than 20 years later, Denny teams with painter Norm Breyfogle, the premier Batman artist of the 90s, to finally reveal the never-before-told secret origin of Ra's al Ghul. In a saga that spans continents and centuries, a poisoned Dark Knight races against death to bring an end to the reign of the demon, and in the process uncovers the tortured past that gave birth to his most powerful enemy. Will either man survive their epic confrontation? Spoiler alert, yes. But let's see. Let's dive into this. So, Tim, we've already heard it. You are a Raish. I am a Raz. I think I've said it on here before. One, surprised at the lack of stories that guests have chosen, like Raz stories, Al Ghul, the Demon's Head stories that people have chosen. This is only, I think this is only the third. Well, no, it'd be fourth because One Bad Day when Paul Herman was on here last. That was the last one. There was the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, and then there was Tower of Babel. I
I
don't
mean,
think there were any other ones where he was the main character. Maybe not even so much introduced. So it surprises me how few people choose these stories. And first of all, like, what's your thoughts and feelings on the character as a whole?
well, Raish is much like Magneto in my eyes, where part of me is like, you know, you're not far off. You like, I don't agree with your methods, but like, part of me is like, do it, just do it. Humanity is the answer to this planet. You're right for doing this, but then there's a part of me I'm like, no. But then I'm just like, and then a moment later I'm like, no, 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 because it's like if there's a 1% chance that humanity can heal itself and be better, I think that's more than enough to try and foster that. I mean, that's why I think Batman continues to do what he does, is because he has said in other versions that Batman knows is a losing battle, that he
Hmm.
can't defeat crime like oh, we defeated fire and
Yeah.
fire will never come back again. Batman knows it's a losing battle, but it's worth trying for, and that's why it's such a great dichotomy. And this is the reason why like Ra's al Ghul, like having that clear motivation, much like Magneto, where you're just like, oh, it's extreme, but I get it. Unlike somebody say the Joker, who's just like an agent of chaos or the
Hmm.
Harlequin of hate and just wants to have a few laughs along the way. Or same thing like Doctor Doom, he runs his country well. It is oppressive, but people are like, no, we like it. It's a thriving nation,
Yeah.
etc., etc. But it's so surprising that so few Ra's al Ghul uh stories have been covered on here. Like, I'm surprised you don't have like the Batman 244, The Demon Lives Again, like the famous like sword fight
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that
Batman with chest hair.
like
The
this
big
big burly
scandal of the
chest.
70s.
Like if Hugh Jackman wasn't already Wolverine, like he would be the perfect Batman with that chest hair. Like that
That's
would have
true.
been like the perfect
Yeah.
description of it. And which we get an adaptation loosely in Batman Begins, but it's on ice instead. We have it seen depicted in the Batman the Animated Series and the Demon's Quest two-parter. Hell,
Hmm.
even Arrow did their version of the fight,
Hmm.
the chestless fight, and that was like mid-season, season 3 of
Yes, sir.
Arrow. So yeah, like I'm surprised like no one people have talked about that. But it's also I think it's kind of like how many Riddler stories, Riddler comics can you think off the top of your head?
Yeah. I mean, just it's on this. You have me on the spot. Yeah, I'm not many, even though I know there are plenty.
Yeah,
Like I can't just fire them off like yeah.
right. Like you had something like Long Halloween or Dark Victory where Riddler is a part of, but
Mhm.
how many Riddler centric stories that you're just like, oh, I know them chapter and verse, blah 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 blah. That not like Joker or even like Two Face, like where you just like, oh, I can chapter and verse, I can recite them.
Yeah. So my history with the character is I was never wild about him, to be honest. I'd still say I've gotten more respect for the character over the years, but
Mm-hmm.
he's still not one that I see if he's going to be the star of something like, oh my God, yes. But it's never been that way and it never will be that way. The centuries old approach takes that means okay, it immediately takes the story into more um almost supernatural-ish elements
Mm-hmm.
instantly because obviously
Yes.
nobody lives for centuries. And so I think there's something with that that gets me like is an instant like okay. But then there's always pending how he's written the mutual respect is where it can lure me in though, of
Mm-hmm.
this whole Roz respects him and and the whole like you're the only one worthy of my daughter. That sounds like that's a so relatable to anybody, like any man who has to go and meet the future father-in-law of like, uh-oh, do we have to sword fight with our shirts off? And like the way that they battle and their conflict, Roz loves the challenge, the playing chess back and forth with each other is always engaging. I think there's something there where they're almost allies in the story and then become enemies. That dynamic I think is my favorite when he's in a Batman story. And I think some of that's present in Birth of the Demon for sure. And I
Yeah.
really like that angle because and I think Nolan obviously and company I think did him very well in Begins. Um in the whole like his thoughts and his beliefs aren't that far off. It's his execution that's like, oh, that's not good. Like if you want to save the planet, awesome. You think that humans are just like taking themselves out and they're going to be the destruction of the world. Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to that. So I say we blow up the world. I've got a problem with that. I don't think that's the right way to go. You almost had me. And so in this story too, the backstory that we have, I think Danny O'Neill does a great job luring us in, knowing what Roz is, but we get lured in to be on his side. And there's a turning point, and we'll see if it's the same one for you, or maybe how much of his side you're on here. When we get there in just soon. I want to ask, I think I was trying to find all over if there were any other stories that O'Neill wrote and Breyfogle illustrated, and I could not find one.
That's a shame that
Yeah.
because I mean obviously the partnership Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle, they're the ones that are synonymous with each other,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the 90s. Very much like how Doug Mensch was known with Kelly Jones
Yep.
and Chuck Dixon and I think
Graham Nolan.
who's Graham Nolan, thank you.
Yep. I mean,
Um,
reflecting back to O'Neill and Adams, like obviously there's just
exactly.
some teams that take on characters and it's like, oh my gosh. Like, and I think you can definitely add Snyder and Capullo to that list as well of a team that just elevated the character and the material, you know.
Right.
It's an exclusive club just because you pair even a good writer and a good artist together does not mean it's going to create the magic. And so, yeah, like the teams that the duos you just listed, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I just read in here too of like Breyfogle's, a premier Batman, yeah, the premier Batman artist of the 90s. There could be some that could debate and say, what about Kelly Jones? What about
Mm.
Graham Nolan? And sure, that's worthy of an argument. For me, I'm not biased. I've just read so much of Breyfogle's stuff on Batman that he definitely, to me, is like the premier artist of the 90s and one of the greatest Batman artists of all time. To me, with Lee Bermejo, my favorite Batman artist of all time.
And this is like, if you ever, especially with Birth of Demon, if you ever had that concern that he was not, you read this and you're like, oh no, this is
Yeah.
definitive.
Holy
It,
moly.
like that's like I rest my case, Your Honor. Um, but it's so funny you bring up Snyder and Capullo as a writer and artist team, but there are times where a writer and artist will come together for one project only, and they make something really magic, but they never work again. I think of Snyder and Jock for
Mhm.
Batman Black Mirror, because Jock's art is very different from Capullo's, but that pairing, especially with that story, works so
Got news
effectively,
for
at
you.
least to me.
I'm pretty sure that they did Witches together.
Yes,
And then All-Star Batman and Rebirth. I think Jock did one issue.
I
Not
thought it
to say
was
you're wrong.
Romita
Um,
Jr. who was mostly All Star
he did the
Batman with
first
Snyder.
he did the first arc.
Okay,
Um, but he did the first arc that was with Two-Face, and
yes,
then the the middle arc was, yeah, it was a different artist, I think, for each issue. And that culminated into being a Ra's al Ghul story.
right.
And maybe it's number four. I don't know. Maybe he just did the covers. I was pretty sure he did one of the issues. I'll look it up when we're done. I didn't
Okay,
think Jock would be coming up. But anyways, carry on.
but all right, like so,
You're
but
wrong, Tim. I didn't interrupt
yeah,
you to tell you that you're wrong.
yeah,
No,
no,
that's
like
not what I'm
you
trying to
did
do.
will actually be in real time, but I'm glad you did, so I can at least go forward and not be as ignorant in conversation. But Jock and Snyder are not the
Yeah.
like. It's like if you're writing an obituary, Jock's not the name that's gonna be associated with
Hmm.
Snyder. It'll be Greg Capullo.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that, like as much as great things that Snyder continues to do and everything, like his his impact on the character will be defined by that partnership.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree.
And it is kind of like seeing this story right here. It just makes you wish like, ah, man, I wish Breyfogle and O'Neill worked together more often. Granted, O'Neill was editing the books and Breyfogle was doing so much with Shadow of the Bat at the time, so I imagine they didn't have much time.
Yeah. And I think more like standalone stories, because yes, they call it the Demon Trilogy, but it's not like you have to read Son of the Demon or Bride of the Demon to understand Birth of the Demon. You
No.
can read this on its own without any other knowledge of anything else, and it's completely fine. And so it's like, if they could have done more books like this. And also in the Black Label format, before a Black Label was even a thought, you know?
Yeah.
So I dig that. Yay. And this is a great format for Breyfogle's art. Um, as for the story itself, so I think there's a time where I had a gap of reading this, and it'd been a while. It's been a
It's been a
while.
while.
And that's for you, Pete. Uh, but like all I was remembering was the flashback story.
Right.
And I was like, this isn't much of like a Batman story. And then when I revisited it, and I did realize I'm like, this is a case of bookending it with Batman, because my rule, which I broke actually last month with Justin Kowalski on the Sleigh Ride episode, is like if Batman is not the star, he has to have a crucial part of the story. That's how it can be eligible for the Batman Book Club. He is
You
definitely
broke
not
your one
just
rule.
yeah, I did. Oh my gosh. And for the Joker. So at least he knows. Poetic. So for this, not just because of the title, but Batman is crucial to this story. He is.
Yes.
In the midst of present day, what's going on with him, he uncovers the backstory of Ra's al Ghul. And then we all end up getting to read and learn the backstory of Ra's al Ghul. So the present day storyline is of him basically busting these guys that are digging, and then he ends up finding out it's in a toxic area, which then causes him to get sick. And he realizes, based on a lot of not direct exposition in talking with Alfred, but kind of, that he's pinpointed an area in northern Africa that he needs to go to because that's where he can stop Ra's al Ghul. And Bruce is getting very sick as Batman. Alfred's trying to get him to see Dr. Tompkins, and it's at this location in North Africa that we end up learning is the original Lazarus Pit spot. He runs into Talia, who is there to try and also bring her father there because he is deathly ill, which we've seen in multiple Ross stories of how he looks when he needs the Lazarus Pit. And that's the state that he is in. So, as far as the setup goes, do you have some opinions and thoughts on how O'Neill gets the story going?
Well, I think a I'm like Batman should be counting his lucky stars. He didn't like emerge from the toxic waste like Emil and RoboCop, and he was
That's
just like,
true. Yeah.
and then get hit by a speeding sports car and splattered. But I even love I just like looking back on it, like the moment where Bruce is getting more and more unhinged
Yeah.
as Alfred is being more and more insistent about like you need medical attention, and it's like it's there's no page numbers in my version, but it's a extreme close up of just Bruce's eyes like looking to the right as Alfred's on his other side, and it's so much like that kind of framing is echoed throughout the story about certain moments with Ra's al Ghul when he's about to exact his revenge or realizing he has been duped by some outside force in his life.
That's a good point. Yeah, I never even considered that or thought of that, but it's a classic like Breyfogle framing and pencil of like a close up on a face. But yeah, you see it from Roz later in the book, almost like similar situations. And I think that's a good point to make out of kind of connecting the two. And I don't think that's thinking too much of it. I think that's too much there now that I think about it for O'Neill to just end up being like, oh yeah, oh wow, look at me. Whoops.
Yeah, like I
That's how he
don't think
talks.
it was by accident. That's for
No.
sure.
Um, I love the setup because they cover everything, and there is a it's a little wordy, but I also don't care and I don't mind when Bruce is telling Alfred about the ley lines, and it, uncovers this, and we've paid so much because we had Wayne people there and they just have so happened to fax me. Yes, fax me these documents before they perished, and everything. And that in as he brings when he to Talia's attention about these writings that this man named Hugh had, and that's what gets us into the backstory, because otherwise, like, what's a way other than like Talia's just like, oh hey Bruce, so let me tell you about my dad.
No,
Okay,
like
and they sit down, cross their legs, and they have a tea by the fire. I'm like, let's talk about good old Roz.
yeah, no, there is enough there's enough justification in the setup that it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not like, oh, we need to race down to the wharf to stop the bad guy, but on the way, let me tell you this story about what's going on. And it's like, no, but like, yeah, there are pressing matters in that Bruce's health is fading, but we have enough time to have this fable being told to him and everything. Um, but when I think of when he says like, "Oh yeah, I got the facts, just the facts," about the where the Lazarus pit may be, and I'm just imagining it was on dot matrix paper, and it was like,
Yeah.
and he
Yes.
prints
Oh
it
my
out
God.
and just like, and like a loud rip as he ripped it off his machine.
And then yeah. Damn it, I tore it too soon.
Oh God.
It took him weeks to get this right up. So when we're introduced to a young Roz, immediately, and I think O'Neill he does a great job with this. Immediately we're on Roz's side because he is competing with a real piece of shit. The prince of the land. Prince
Yeah.
Runts. Okay, just the name alone makes you want to backhand him, you know? Oh, Prince Runts, who runs
Ugh.
over an old lady on his horse because they're racing and Raz gets out of the way. The Sultan, he doesn't care at all. He's so proud of his boy, yada yada. Immediately draws us in, and we see him not only after he runs over a woman just to win a race, he then grabs Raz's wife, Sora, knowing full well that she is his, pulls her away from him and is very much of like, almost like you have nothing for me, like you owe me because I won. I'm the whatever. So O'Neill wastes no time to get us into this like, you know, putting Raz in a positive light and putting this other guy in like he's okay, he's the villain of this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it's like, oh, that Race was at one point a very honorable man, and he was an honorable physician. He
Hmm.
was his goal in life was to heal people, even if he did abandon his uncle and his family and what they wanted him to be, and go work for the enemy of his
Hmm.
family. Um, but yeah, but like even like the setup of the fact that the prince grabs Raish's wife, he like, oh, this is gonna be a problem later down the line, isn't
Yeah.
it? And when that does happen, when that does come to a head, I'm just glad it could have been gratuitous, it could have been really icky, but it didn't go that far. But yeah, and then like the Sultan is just like, my son can do no wrong. He is the
Hmm.
prodigal son that
He
like
is
he could
young, impetuous. You must forgive him.
like can I? Or you gotta
No.
teach him like he like consequences, even like for
Yeah.
even though I'm screaming into the void here. People with power and their kids knowing consequences is not a thing that really happens. So what am I gonna
Well,
do?
and like even Raz says, of course, Excellency. And Sora says, we understand, and then says only to Raz that he is a pig. He paws me at every opportunity. Okay, we've laid some groundwork here. We understand where we're at in this community. And so wins us over a little bit more here with Raz because then at nighttime, he goes and he visits the woman that was run over by the horse. And
Mm-hmm.
he talks to her son of basically saying, before you slice me open, allow me a moment with your mother. And because, like you just said, he's a physician, he wants to lessen her pain of like death is inevitable for her. I want to like lessen her pain though. And
Yeah.
the son is close to striking down Roz, in which Roz is very accepting of it. And then somebody bursts in and mentions about, that Runts, he's fallen gravely ill. You must attend him immediately. And so the goal, the absolute goal of the Sultan, seeing that shit earlier in the day and then being like, physician, save my boy. He's the prince.
Look what they've massacred my boy. I'll do anything. Please just revive him.
Yeah.
And Raish is like, I'm not sure, but then has a little bit of a vision quest and
Hmm.
discovers the secrets, the truth of the Lazarus Pit, the Earth's most precious juices that could revive a person if
Hmm.
done correctly, which may look insane on paper for all the combination of chemicals that be put into it and elixirs, but with the right combination in the right places could work. And the Sultan's like, I'll give you whatever you need, just make my son better. And Race is like, all right, you asked for it.
Yeah. So his Breyfogle interlude time.
Yes.
This has been a greatly illustrated story so far. He takes his nap out in the desert, as one does, and he has the visions. Breyfogle, it's pencils and then painting for the next few pages. Absolutely masterful images, each
Hmm.
page. And we see the Breyfogle Batman eyes and the cowl ears in these images, and we get like more shape and see he's envisioning like a dragon, if you will, but like a big beast of some kind. I would say a dragon, but it's almost like a premonition, of and he even says in his sleep of like death, death, and you see, and he has the vision of falling into the pits and rising and much healthier, and he's got the bat over his shoulder as he looks evil. Let's take both angles here. So, first of all, visually. Oh my God. Norm, you crazy SOB. Respectfully, rest in peace. What do you think of the mastery here?
It's so expressionistic, and that like, oh no, we have a little bit of dialogue that, but Denny doesn't like fill up every panel. He doesn't feel the need that it has to be constant dialogue. That he lets the art do the speaking for the actual story. And the fact that like, yes, the demon that he fights looks like Batman at times, or otherwise looks like a dragon, just like you're saying, a premonition of his greatest conflict eventually will be Batman, his equal, or even his best, like his better, is just like, oh no, this is like the Joker says, I think we're destined to do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it kind of feels like. And yeah, and I like, but I'm also looking at it like, I'm surprised this was not a Vertigo book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I know it was a hardcover and then obviously trade paperback, but I'm surprised this was a regular piece and not just like, oh no, we're gonna put this in the kind of more adult themed version of our
Mm-hmm.
publishing that things like Sandman and the Animal Man were doing at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not one for the kids. It's
No.
it's a very mature story, but not gratuitous by any sense. It's a mature story, and I think the art is next level in this. It is just freaking fantastic. The coloring, the shading, all of it. On
I think
O'Neill's,
something like 13 would be age appropriate. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, it's fine. Yeah, I think 13 could, but and then they'd get the gist of it, but I think it would mean more as they would then revisit as years go on.
Yeah.
So in a couple years, I'll actually understand everything about this book. I'm growing up, Tim. I'm growing up. But I think O'Neill does a great job here of like these are things that we associate with Ross, right? The visions that he has, like we instantly see, like we know, oh, he's as you just said, we know we're bound to do this forever. Okay, we know him and Batman are bound to do this forever. He's having visions of this. He's having visions of what a Lazarus pit does. It's where it's like informs his idea and makes him see the light, if you will, that like, yes, this is the way. So I think that's all done really well, and it covers some good ground without having to figure out who's he going to say this to so we can explain it to the readers. There's two words in those 4 pages: death, death, that he's talking in his sleep. Otherwise, everything else is interpretive, but yet it's not so out there that everybody's going to have something completely different. It's like, nope, we get it, and I think it's really well done.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's just it's every frame of painting, like everything else is just so gorgeous, and it's so economical in its storytelling and everything. Like like I remember when Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness came out, people like dinged it because of like Sam Raimi's like isms of like crossfading and multiple exposures and everything like in an image to tell the story. And people thought like, it's gimmicky, it's cheesy. And I'm like, no, I want somebody to be kind of bold and brave, to be
mhm,
that expressive in the images. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's Sam Raimi doing this easily and it would look amazing.
mhm. Yeah. That we when he returns back to the Sultan, we get introduced to Bisu. Who's Bisu? It's a demon, a
Yes, that
statue of a
they
green
worship.
demon. Okay. They sacrifice a baby. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So what were you just saying? This is not meant for the kids, right? Yeah, this is not meant for the kids.
No.
It adds more depth to the I don't want to say clueless, but just like, gosh, he's hard to pinpoint a term for like the Sultan. Because you wouldn't say, well, he's just a father that's really trying, to look out for his boy. No, he's makes more excuses for his kid, even though he constantly sees the crap that his kid's doing. And so he even says that Bisu, 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 however you want to pronounce it, he
Hmm.
he says like Roz even says of like as like for worship, and the Sultan says, it has no use for worship, it demands sacrifice. And Raz is like, you're sacrificing this for your son. And he's very much like whatever it takes. And yeah, and it's done in a way, it's weird to say that this is tastefully done. But it is. You get the point of what happened. We don't get a panel up close of the sacrifice of the child, but in the far, like in the distance, you can see the smallest bit of red painted on around the shape of where that kid was. So you can put together what happened, and it only angers you even more at the Sultan. And then, of course, for what follows in the next few pages of Raz saves the life of the prince.
Yeah, I
Spiritually
mean,
also brings in the demon, which we know that's coming to a head somehow.
yes.
No pun intended.
I mean, like Ray should have known what the Sultan was willing to do for his son.
Hmm.
So he should not have been surprised when the Sultan covers for his son based upon what he does after being resurrected by the Lazarus pit.
It's not good.
No, no,
We
not good at all.
Something that Breyfogle expertly does in this book are is illustrating everyone as they come out of the pit. The coloring and the pencils, everything looks awesome. And these are I've mentioned Breyfogle before, actually with you, about I think the last time that you were on was it the last Arkham?
Yes.
And about like Breyfogle, and this is hyperbolic, sure, but also like I don't care. I think it accurately describes Breyfogle that he's like one of the few artists that his static images like are moving.
Mm.
Like like there's something about the way that he just draws and the angles and how like sharp points to things. Here, the first one of Runts coming out of the pit, and like the amount of detail of the liquid dripping off of him, and he's in that crouched position with the evil red eyes. It's almost like you can hear the liquid like dripping off of him. You can hear him getting out of the pool. It's just like, oh my gosh, this guy sucks. But man, Breyfogle makes him suck so good. Right? Yeah, there we go. Perfect way.
Yes.
This guy sucks so good. Let's let that sit for a moment.
I was gonna say that's a Yelp review.
And there we go. Okay, Birth of the Demon. It sucks so good.
And then but like Raish is so proud of himself, and he's like, huh. Like he has like a Dr. Frankenstein moment where he's just like, now I know what it means to feel like God
Yeah.
by cheating death. And the princess is like, woman,
Yeah.
and goes
Oh my
after
God.
Raish's wife.
Yeah, and then so things the celebration is for a very limited amount of time because then we already hate the prince and he was gonna die, which we were looking forward to. Raz, being the good guy that he is, brings him back to life, and then how does he get rewarded? He gets his wrist broke, it seems like, and then also gets to watch his wife get choked to death by this prince. And then even worse, the Sultan sees it all, is overwhelmed by the fact that his prince is healthy and alive and good, and blames Raz for the death of his wife.
Yeah. They're
Huh.
like, oh no, like my son
Dick
was trying to
move.
revive your wife.
Yeah. Dick Move. Dick move.
No,
Uh,
they're saying Boo Earns, Boo Earns.
uh, I'm speeding along because then it's like that is now completely, if we weren't already completely on Raz's side here. And then to add to injury, the prince doesn't want him to just be killed. He wants him to suffer. So he puts him in a cage with his naked dead wife and then puts them in a hole. And then puts the nomads also in the pit as well, so that and he will just have to spend his days like rotting to death. His last days just rotting to death, right there in a cage with his dead wife. So it's one of those things sometimes, and rightfully so, is some people can ask like, "Hey Denny, where did you get this effed up idea?" And then just think like Denny's wife at the time too, be like, Denny, do we have some things to talk about here? Are we okay?"
It's what happens when I have to ride the New York City subway every day to work. That's probably what his answer would be.
Yeah, I'm true, yeah. Um,
But no,
I mean
yeah,
it's messed up.
it's real messed up, and it's so cruel.
Yeah.
Um, and but it makes whatever action that Race takes for the rest of the story he does to these his enemies completely justified in the audience's eyes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's crucial, and I don't think, and right now trying to think in everything I've read and watched that included this character, I don't think that there's ever been a moment that comes close to at this point in the story where we have been on his side more. Like not even
No,
close. Like this definitely is the biggest one of like, oh, you want to root for Ra's al Ghul? Like read this story because you're
yeah,
gonna root for him.
and
Fortunately, go ahead.
and then like yeah, you root for him, but then you get that whiplash by the end of the book where it's like, oh yeah, Batman's in this story too, and you
Oh
realize,
yeah.
oh god, the atrocities that Ra's has tried to commit over the centuries. Batman's right in trying to take him down.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the point where like when we speed through because I don't need to go page by page on how he escapes. Everybody who's listening to this read the book, and it's sort of like, it's a good thing that he went and visited that woman that was run over by the prince earlier because her son comes and saves Roz and the remaining living nomads, who then becomes Roz's posse. And as he has like this, he has another he has another vision, right? Where he
Yeah,
envisions the green fabric that is some of the, I don't know, like there's something in that fabric that got the prince sick before, and he sees it as now as another entryway into getting the, like he creates this whole plan on how he can get the prince sick again. And another great illustration of the prince falling into the pit. Uh well done, Norm Breyfogle. But he reconciles with his uncle that you mentioned earlier in the story to get this plan up and running. The uncle sees that he's a man of his word, basically gets himself in back with the Sultan, and the prince is sick again. What he's going to do, masterful plan. All of this, it gets the prince back in the pit, but it's not the correct formula. And so he looks much different getting out of the pit this time than he did the first time. Still expertly illustrated by Norm Breyfogle. And you see that this difference in Roz of like satisfaction in a much different way, than the satisfaction of when the pit worked the first time. I think so. This is like the last point for me where I'm still fully on his side,
yeah,
because I feel like this is revenge, and for the sake of the story, it's justice. It is. This is an evil human being that Raz took out. Eventually the Sultan would die and the prince would then become, the leader. And it's like, you really want this guy in charge? We've seen enough examples now of the kind of person that he is. You want this guy in
right.
charge? And Raz did. I mean, it's justifiable.
Yeah, and like much like Bernie Wrightson a little bit before him, it seems like Breyfogle would have been just at home drawing EC comics in the
Oh
heyday of
my
that.
God, yes. Holy moly.
Like Tales
Yeah.
from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, he would have been perfect. He would have been right in
Hmm.
line drawing those stories
Hmm.
of corpses coming out of the ground,
Yeah.
especially how the prince looks when he comes out of the false Lazarus pit. Um, like the only decision I find like kind of objectionable is that the Sultan is tied up to the corpse of his son and sent out on horseback into the desert. But before that, Raish throws a sword into the Sultan's chest, killing him. And like even like Hume says, like, "Oh, you're merciful." Part one, and it's like that's the last time I'll be merciful.
Yeah.
But part of me wonders, like, no, he shouldn't have killed him. He should have let the desert taken them, like much like how he did with the pit. Like, I mean, like when he was buried alive with his wife, I feel like that's what he should have done. But
Hmm.
maybe that says more about me than anything else.
Tim, do we have some issues to work through here?
No, I'm totally fine. What are you talking
Ah,
about?
I mean that's valid because I think that's what O'Neill wants you to think in those moments as well. And you're seeing Sultan like the plan being put into action of basically the swarming of the Sultan's men, and in a great splash page from Breyfogle yet again. And Raz and his uncle's men are, very much winning. And Raz looks, madly happy and yelling. You hear to the Sultan, you hear the screams, the clatter of hooves, the ringing of swords, the sounds of your elite guard being slaughtered like the pigs they are. So it's like the Sultan is witnessing the massacre of his safeguard, of his protection, and then he gets tied up with his, I mean, dead son at that point. Like
I would hope he's dead at
I
that
think he
point.
is. It freaking looks like it. And then yeah, he throws the sword, but I guess that's the definitive way to make sure he's done and gone. But like, I feel bad for the horse. Like, I hope the
Yeah,
horse makes it to water.
I
But
certainly hope so.
yeah, like, I'm with you on a little bit. Like, huh? I don't know because yeah, you're asking someone to, okay, you end this man's life now, or you let him where he like you let him just ride off in hopes that the universe will work itself out and he will die a slow, hot, painful death.
Yeah, but
Huh.
it's not like he's like redeemed any much further because like the next scene pretty much is the raid on the Sultan's palace and everyone is killed. So whatever goodwill that Raish has in that he's instilled in the audience is gone. And
Hmm.
even like this moment where he's screaming like no mercies, he enters the palace. I'm reminded of a moment from Lawrence of Arabia when Lawrence is starting to lose his way and he declares no prisoners as him and his men attack a convoy and leave none alive. Um, and so you're just like, oh no, this is where it really begins for Raish's downward spiral into true villainy, where like he tries to think he's doing the right thing, but then later on he kills the person who saved his life centuries later, and his uncle abandons him because
Yeah.
he doesn't recognize the man that Raish has turned into.
So this is definitely, so this is my turning point. So we're working up, and so by the Sultan's guards being slaughtered, I'm still like rightfully so. A lot of times the guards are following the orders. If they don't follow the orders, they will get killed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's part of the deal. It's like, okay, I get it. So you use something like classic in Lawrence of Arabia. I think of something a little more contemporary, and I think Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
And season 8, episode 5, we're still on Daenerys's side, and she's there at the Capitol, and then she's just like, burn them all, take them all out. And you start to feel like, I've been rooting for you. I, in a way, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but also like now you're just slaughtering innocents.
there's a lot of women and children that had nothing to do with you that you're
Nothing
burning
to do with
alive.
anything. And you're like, leave no prisoners, leave no. Nobody alive, take out everyone. And he even says, and Roz says here, no mercy. And that's the turning point of like the demon's head is born at that point to me. And it's almost, and the best stuff is written in tragedy. Like the best stories are ones of tragedy. And so
Mhm.
you do have this of like, we've just been experiencing this villain in a good light and we're on his side. And then he goes too far with it, where it is like, I don't think that there's any excuse here. And then like Batman ends up talking about it later on of like, he ends up wanting to just delete the past. He wants to leave nothing in the past. No, like just erase history essentially, which I guess would be the human cleansing of the Sultan's, area. And it's like damn, not that I expected him to come out of this like a good guy,
Right.
but it's just like it's really well done by O'Neill to take us on that journey where there is an inevitable turn that I think we know when we start the story, where like it's coming, you won't know when. And then for me, it sounds like for you too, that like that was the point. That was when it happened. Probably everybody else reading it. That's when it happened. It was like, there it is. And Roz was
Yeah.
born. The real Roz was born. No longer the physician, now the asshole.
Yeah. The eco terrorist, the wanted to be the destroyer of worlds if he wanted to be. Yeah, that like at that point, like, nope, this is uh this is not a hero's journey. This is the
Yeah.
journey of a great man that turns to villainy.
Hmm.
This is something like this is something like Anakin Skywalker turning to Darth Vader, pretty much.
To ultimately be this, he needs that moment, right? To be put on this upper level of villainy, and he sees himself as more powerful than anybody else, and Batman's the only one over centuries that's ever come close to being his equal. So
Yeah.
he needs these moments of merciless mercilessness, right?
Hmm.
And I think goes obviously goes far beyond. I haven't read it. Shocker, I haven't read every Ra's al Ghul story. This goes far beyond anything else that we'd seen up to this point, I feel, for the character.
In such a personal level, because like, yeah, he kills an entire palace, which is a lot of people and everything, but like it's it gets to the point like it say if he like destroyed an entire city, it's like there's a quote that Stalin says that had said he's like one death is a tragedy, a million death is a statistic, and because like at that point you can't quantify that level of loss
Hmm.
as an individual. So keeping it to such a localized level here, like you could still put into perspective like how much destruction that person causes and everything. And that's why we kind of skip ahead centuries, not like we hear hints at what he had done over the centuries
Hmm.
with Hume and his uncle by his side, how those relationships ended,
Hmm.
and how it's led to this seemingly final confrontation between the detective and the demon's head.
Yeah. Which I really like how that making that connection, because sometimes doing backstories, um, this isn't a prequel, but in prequels and stuff, it's like, oh, that's where that came from. Oh, look at that. Cool. That's where
It
this
becomes
and that's
really
where he
too
got
cute for his
synced.
own
Yes,
good, and it's like,
exactly. Some things can snap and it's like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. And some, yeah, definitely roll your eyes. I do think with the Demon's Head though, I didn't get annoyed with it. I thought
no,
because he wasn't like, I will wear this and parade every city I'm in. La la la. No, he's just kind of like, you're beneath me. He gets up on the statue and takes off the head and throws it in the ground because it's like I have no respect for you. I'm better than you.
yeah,
And
it's
it's
not
like, okay,
like,
it's spiritual.
mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, you're now from now on you'll be known as Han Solo because you're alone. It's not like
Okay.
that.
No,
It's
no.
just like and it's not like, oh, everything that's important to my character happened in this 72-hour period.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Uh I do appreciate the dialogue between Talia and Batman that follows. We get, like you'd said, almost fast forward a couple centuries to witness Ra's, and then supporting what I'd said of like he's just there to. Hugh is trying to write the history, and Ra's wants none of it. He wants it gone. He wants it burnt, and ends up killing Hugh in the process. Ra's also has the dorkiest haircut that he has had in his entire life in any media I see at this time period. Another great one of him exiting the Lazarus pit from Breyfogle. Um,
Yeah,
there.
his
So I'm trying to think the one page where Talia says because basically Batman's giving he's not giving any ground on Ra's where Talia's trying to say like you don't he's a good man, you don't give him any kind of sympathy, and Batman's like no, not at all, he doesn't have any. And what does he say? Obliterating the past. Oh, he's buried a lot of buildings and a lot more bodies, and he's made liars of the history books. And there's a language that isn't spoken anymore because it displeases him. But he can't let go of what happened all those centuries ago. Not for 1 second, he can't. And she says, perhaps not. You of all men should understand why. You clutch at the deaths of your parents as a baby clutches a blanket. Like, she's one of the few, and I'd say, Catwoman also, that will stand up in his face, and because they know personal details with him, like they'll give it to him straight up. And I think
yeah.
that's a part with Talia that I really like is like written in those ways and not complete villainy. Um, it's like the relationship between those two that I like stories where she's included when that's their scenes, their dialogue and stuff. Because I think it's a valid point.
Oh yeah, I mean, no one will call you out on your shit more than someone you're intimate with,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who knows you inside and out,
Mm-hmm.
and like even more so than family because they like oh they know you like oh they see you through whatever facade that you put up in front of friends and family and whatnot. Um, and it's funny because this is the fulcrum point between, or the I guess the where the roads diverge between Batman and Ra's is because Batman is defined by his past, and he will
Mm-hmm.
never forget that, and that's what leads to his actions going forward. Whereas Ra's wants to forget the past and doesn't want to be defined
Nice.
by it. Hence why he wants the language that he spoke and the history that happened there to be buried and never to be uttered again. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why he's like, oh no, I am what I'm doing is going forward, and I will lead this into a new utopia, a new nirvana upon Earth. If I'm allowed to do this, will you help me? Will you marry my hot daughter?
Yeah. No, but I will take her to the bed and we will create this son of a bitch that will become Robin that nobody
Yes,
likes except Eric Carter. But
I don't mind Damien.
they've
I'm
done
not gonna.
well in the past couple of years. They've done well with him.
Yes. Um, it just hurts as a Tim Drake fan because it's like, ah, man, it's like Jason is defined by tragedy. Uh, Dick is defined by he could walk away if he wanted to. He does not need to be a superhero. Not saying it's a bad thing. Like he is not determined and as driven or played like Batman is. You can argue he might even be a better fighter than Batman because of his natural abilities and stuff like that. And same thing with like, and Tim is like, oh, he is the detective of the group and everything like that. Damien, he is the son, he is blood and whatnot. And so, regardless of how he feels about his other children, that is his son, and he will never forget that, and he'll never let that. Uh, you would hope not to cloud any other decision making processes when it comes to the other Bat family. But it also it's like it's so weird. Speaking of siring children, that Santana on acid at Woodstock is the reason why
Oh my
Talia al
God.
Ghul
I
is
have that
here.
written down here. Like, what a wonderful note that Ra's al Ghul went to Woodstock.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing. And then like, so was he responsible for Woodstock '99 too? When he came back and wanted like, no, we're gonna
Yeah.
burn everything down. Limp
Oh my
Bizkit hit
God,
the
that's true.
stage.
Yeah, let's go, Fred. I wrote that down. I thought that was great because Batman even asked her of like, how did you keep yourself so well preserved? Thinking like, are you also one that partakes in the bathing of the Lazarus? And she's like, no, I'm not even 30. My parents met at this festival called Woodstock. I was like, oh my God. Yep, it was Santana. Santana did it.
I mean, his music is magical, so I understand why that might have
Yeah.
happened.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
and
it.
then we have a reprise of the fight in the desert between
Yeah.
Batman and Raish.
You could say either the sequel to Batman number 244 or the nod to Batman 244. Either way, the two of them with lightning and in a storm fighting by fire and Lazarus Pit. Um, it's not pretty. It's drawn beautifully. It's beautifully
Hmm.
ugly, which I actually
Yes.
like. I really like that, which sounds weird, but because Roz is like he's on his deathbed basically. Batman's getting Bruce. He's getting there, and I like how Bruce too takes off the cowl. And he's like, "Well, I got to take my shirt off for this." He's like, "Here's chest hair for chest hair. Look at how nipples have evolved in the past 20 years since they were first on, with Neil Adams." But I think it's a good ugly fight, and then yeah, when Roz just jabs him right in the chest with that shovel, it's like damn, and then that 2-page spread, zombie Bruce, the freaking shovel sticking out of his chest, and Roz looking on like, oh damn, and Talia will be like, oh my god, sweet,
Like, what have I done? Moment. Like,
what have I done?
I think, what have I done? Things have gotten out of hand. So like, all right, so Bruce like jumps Raish and they both go flying into the Lazarus Pit. Do you think Batman tried to intended to kill Raish by doing this?
No, because he doesn't.
Okay.
I think he it was pure happenstance of them fighting, and I mean by him getting them both into the pit itself, he knows what the pit does. So I don't think he was trying to kill Roz at all. He's trying to get like he's got to take Roz out. He's got to get rid of the pit because then Roz doesn't have like he has to let the universe play itself out. And that one thing that always happens with life is that there's death. So like
Yes.
none of that is said on here, but that's definitely just like that's Batman to me, and that's what I feel like Batman would do. Um,
Right. I was just worried, like, it's like, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you kind of moment of like,
oh, it
this
doesn't
is
bother
getting,
me. Nope,
you,
doesn't bother me.
that doesn't bother you. It
Those
doesn't,
moments
you
don't
know,
bother me.
it's like, oh, this is, we have semantics here. This is like, oh, what I told you is true from a certain point of view. Like the kind of like logic you're leaping through here to justify your actions. Like, okay, wait, hold on.
Year one, the three burglars trying to take the TV. Batman jumps down. He starts fighting them, gets outnumbered. The one guy goes to fall. Batman like grabs him by the ankle to save him. That's Batman. Batman would not let that guy just, well, you shouldn't have taken a TV and
Yeah.
let him fall and completely cripple or kill himself that route. Um, Ra's Batman Begins. The guy's trying to kill the entire city. Like, frick off. Like, sorry, but you're next level.
Yeah.
Petty thieves, even murderers. I think Batman will go out of his way. Like, somebody shot someone, and murdered them. He'd get them to knock them out and tie them up for police to put them in jail.
Right.
But Roz, like I don't know, and maybe I'm contradicting myself. And there's a number of examples that somebody I'm sure could be like, well, actually, Ryan. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Not
I
here.
know it's not too serious with me. Like it's more like
It's
in
totally
the
safe. I
context
feel
of the
under
movie, it
attack by
works.
you, Tim.
No, don't feel attacked right now. It's more of like if people want to be shitty about that, like oh, but it's the people who really believe that and really get very uppity about that are the same people who say, you know, Bruce Wayne could do so much more if he gave money to charity
Oh God.
and the infrastructures of Gotham City. Not like he already does that, and in his numerous occasions he does. And
Yeah.
to quote Patrick H. Willems, yeah, he does that, but also the Joker is poisoning the water supply.
Exactly.
You can't giving money to the police is not going to prevent that and stop him from doing that.
Yeah. So like in my rebuttal. You could flat out turn around and tell me a situation that I'd be like, that situation, I agree with you, Tim. Just for me, though, I think it's circumstantial on, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you. Totally works on this one for me. In Birth
Yeah.
of the Demon, he's fighting him. They both happen to fall into the pit, and the storm blows through, covers the pit. We only see Bruce rise out of it, and he's fully healed. So the Lazarus pit worked. That Lazarus pit worked for the last time. Maybe not for the last time. I don't know, but it's the end of the story, and we don't see Roz. We know he didn't die forever,
Yes.
but for this story, this story has a beginning and end, like totally works.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other points you want to bring up before I ask you some questions?
No, I would just say for those who have listened to this who may not have read this,
Spoiler alert.
spoilers, yeah. Sorry, folks. It gets a hearty recommendation because it's very different. And like you said, like get the trilogy, like the Mike W. Barr's story, like Son of the Demon. Like I think that's a really good story, and I enjoyed it anyway. So
Mhm.
I might be biased, but yeah, no, I'd say it is a great one-off, and I'm glad that O'Neill and Breyfogle got together for this.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. Let's get to some questions.
Yes, you've got a question?
First off, Tim, what was your favorite part of the Birth of the Demon? Birth
I
of the Demon.
I mean, the single piece, the single image that sticks with me is, I know it's gonna sound sick, but it's when Raish is being put in the cage with his dead wife and put into
You're a
it's
sick
big.
bastard, Tim.
I know, but like it is the image that sticks with me. Other than like so many dynamic poses from Batman, including the shovel in his chest. Those are the images that when I think of this story, those are the ones that my mind immediately conjures up. So I guess you could say that's my favorite part. I mean, at least it's the one that's left the biggest impact on my psyche.
I think for me, it's the last moments of a good Roz, and that's when Prince Runts comes out of uh the bad Lazarus pit. Because that's when we get to see his plan, Roz's plan go into action. We see justification. Um, we see a blend of revenge and justice from there, and then the next few pages, and then it does take the turn, like you and I have said, of like, well, Roz now has turned into villain. So it's like the last moment of him being a good guy and getting some revenge that he should have, and then it's a lot of like, so you get the runts coming out of the pit that's drawn so well, but there's so many close-ups that Breyfogle does really well too, of everybody's face. And you see the Sultan's face as he's witnessing it, and then you see Raz's face of like satisfaction, and then another one of like the Sultan saying, "My boy," and he's like, and like, but like the action that looks like, and the massive close-up of Raz, which is another great image penciled by Breyfogle. I think all of that is just, I think for the story itself, and then you look at the history of Roz as a character, I think that's a really good standout scene for me.
I can totally see why that would be like your standout moment. But when you say like that, like when you're quoting the Sultan, he's like, "My boy." I just think of that audio clip that makes the rounds on Instagram every once in a while. That's my boy. No, my boy, Father, help. That's what rang in my mind when you said that. Sorry.
Well, it's funny because I thought you were going to say in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, nobody delivers after Cedric Diggory, also to be known as
That's
Bruce
my
Wayne.
boy.
My boy. That's like, oh man, great delivery on that one. But that's what I thought of when I was reading this. My boy.
Oh no.
A lot of death of
Oh,
sons and family
a
and
future
babies in this.
Batman,
My
no less,
gosh.
too.
No. Uh,
Oh
what's your
man.
this one was tough. What was your favorite panel?
My favorite panel. Oh, it might be. it's near the end. It's during the Batman and Ra's fight, and it's a giant splash page where they're right. It's the lightning that's crashing behind them right before they start catching these hands. Um, because I just imagine, like, I know I mentioned like Sam Raimi before, who could make a really good adaptation, but also like George Miller would make this a really good adaptation if this ever got like a live action movie. Especially
George, we need you to go back to the desert. Ah, damn it.
Yeah, your life is defined by sand, much like
Yes.
Anakin Skywalker.
Sand, it gets everywhere. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh yes. But like you think of like the sandstorm sequence in Mad Max Fury Road. Like imagine like that's what these two are fighting in the middle of. Like that's what I would want to see on the big screen. Realism be damned.
Yeah. Mine comes at the very other end of the book, and it is a few pages in when you get that bat cave underneath Wayne Manor. I freaking love this image. It is one of my favorite Breyfogle images out of anything that he's ever done. I freaking love it. And I know that somebody could come in and say that's not to scale, that's not accurate because the manor looks small and the cave's big. I don't give a shit. Yep, exactly. I love that image. It's fantastic. That was a no-brainer. In a book full of so much excellent art. That one, it will never change. Always be my favorite image in this book. Would you like to see this adapted in animation?
Absolutely. If it's given the right budget, because I don't want this to be cheaped out. Like, it's the reason why I stopped watching most of the DC animated movies is because they just look so cheap to me. I'm sorry to say, but like the was it like the Tomorrowverse? Is that what it's called? Like the most recent like line of DC movies where like or whatever the hell it is, where it's like where Crisis of Infinite Earths is like a part of and whatnot, and like those design choices, like nope, it just looks cheap to me. I'm sorry, like even like latter part of Young Justice started to look a little cheap, where like because the budgets were probably smaller compared to like the renewed seasons. So yes, I would want to see this in animation, only under the pretense that it's given the correct budget to faithfully translate this to animation.
Yeah, same. I know David Warner is no longer with us. It doesn't matter to me. This can totally be a one-off animated film as well. Have somebody that could do a great range of a young Roz and then like the Roz of the present on his deathbed. I think that it could all be really great. I do think animation DC does a good job with animation and movies more so than Marvel. They do as far as like quantity, but the quality I do get that recently has dipped. Story front, and then it has like the animation has looked the exact same. And some stories I really want it to be elevated and to really stand out and be something different. Batman Ninja was not everybody's cup of tea, but I liked it. And one thing I really liked about it was that they went freaking balls to the wall on animation. It does not look like other DC animated movies. And I really respect that. And I would like if they'd have a unique approach to every animated movie. And that's what I would want for this. I wouldn't want the same thing that they've been doing for a while to be what this one would look like.
I totally agree. And hell, even to tie it back to the conversation that started the podcast, like even Batman meets the TMNT, like that looked good to me. Like Batman versus Shredder in that movie, like that, like no, like they wanted to make sure this looks good, and I think it did look well. And I know David Warner's not with us, but if I had to cast somebody who I think would have the right tenor for it, actor Ralph Ineson from The Witch. He was the father figure in that. He was recently in Nosferatu as one of the doctors.
Oh my gosh. I thought he's doing Galactus.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, like damn, that's a get. That's a get for a voice. Yeah, that's a good. Ooh, that'd be awesome.
I know I just set such a high expectation for whoever voices Ra's al Ghul at anything going forward. So I
Yeah, that's a
apologize.
good. I dig that. That's a. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, there we go. Birth of the Demon. We did it. We gave birth.
Woo!
Tim, congratulations and thanks for being here for it from beginning to end.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, especially to talk Batman with you.
Yeah.
And I haven't podcasted in quite some time, so I needed this. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Hopefully it won't be your last time either. We'll wait until the comments come out, and we'll see.
Yes.
Maybe I'll get canceled. This will be your show. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people are finally sick and tired of Ryan, your whole I don't have to save you. Comments were stupid and we are done. Like, I don't know. It could happen. Big
Yes.
world. It could happen.
And then I'm like, oh, suddenly, like the show's like, and this is why this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. And I'm just shilling companies every 25 minutes. It's just a really crowbarred in commercial.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Tim, why don't you go ahead and plug away anything and everything that you'd like to?
If you want to follow me on Threads, Blue Sky, and X, or Twitter and Instagram, it's like this is Tim Rooney. Rooney spelled Rooney. That's where my musings usually is. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/Through the Lens Productions. I just put out a video about my failures of 2024 as a creator in a short film form, and then like how I'm trying to be better and being more creative in 2025 going forward.
If you want to see Tim Rooney talk to Tim Rooney's, check it out.
Oh yeah. I see my acting abilities.
Seen it. Yes, the range of this man.
Geez. That is just my internal conversations every single day. That's
have them,
man.
In
my head.
We all have them, and anybody who says that they don't is a freaking liar. Yeah, so glad to have you back on here. As for the Batman Book Club, follow on the socials at the Batman BC for latest episode drops, upcoming episodes, sometimes some giveaways. Make sure to subscribe to the Batman Book Club YouTube channel. Pete and I are doing No Man's Land this year. It's happening. It's happening because it's been a while.
Oh my god!
But it's happening.
Can do it's going to be like a No Man's Land month or something like that. There's no way you can do that in a single episode.
Like we did the Road to No Man's Land omnibus. We broke it up into 8 parts. And we did each part a month, and each part was like 6 issues or something from the omnibus. That's what's going to happen for No Man's Land. I just teased it so long. We're going to make it happen though, because I bought the omnibus for that reason. And Pete's been ready, so this one's all on me. Pete's been ready. He's like, tell me when, and life's been busy. So now life has found a way. If you want to support the Batman Book Club, variety of ways you can do that. Like I said at the top of the show, patreon.com/the Batman BC. Go to tpublic.com, type in TBBC for the Batman Book Club for some cool things with the logo expertly created by Justin Kowalski. But if you don't want to spend any money at all, that's 100% A-OK. Easiest, quickest, most impactful thing you can do to help this show is rate and review it. So however you listen to it, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, go to the rate and review page, rate and review the show. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more it helps spread the word. And as you, me, and Tim all know, that word is panic. So, for Tim Rooney, I am Ryan Lauer. Until next time, read my comics.